And we're live. Welcome back. It's been a month and almost a half, but we're here now with some Devil Worlds to discuss.
How are we doing? How are you doing, Alex? You doing good?
Me,
Been a while. Yeah,
I'm tired,
that's fair.
but that's life.
So we're covering today Dark Lord's Conscience from Empire Strikes Back Monthly 155, written by Alan Moore, and Rust Never Sleeps, also from UK Empire Strikes Back Weekly 156, the following issue, also by Alan Moore. Penciler John Stokes, letterer John Aldridge, and colorist James Sinclair. It's only a couple pages, but definitely one of the memorable Devil Worlds comics. The squid guy always stuck out to me as a very memorable character. He got Darth Vader playing chess. Starts on this planet called Cheelit, and yes. Vader's invited to play a game of Firepath, which is space chess. They sort of call out the positions, and they're remotely move the pieces across the board. And he's playing against the ruler of the planet. He's named Doll, Dhol. And
yes, Lady Doll.
Yes. It's a she. Interesting.
Yeah.
Female squid. Anyway, there's a guild of Vindicators that are out to kill Darth Vader when he's on this planet. He's sort of aware of it. And the whole game, the whole premise of getting him to come to this planet to play Firepath is so that they could try to kill him. There's this sort of force entity that is called Clat the Shamer. He comes up to some of the stormtroopers that are on sentinel duty outside the palace while they're playing chess or sort of watching over Darth Vader, his personal guard or whatever. And this Clat the Shamer guy, he probes the mind of the two stormtroopers there and gets them to commit suicide through their previous crimes committed on behalf of the Empire and that. And then Dole, Lady Dole, actually tries the same against Vader, ends up not working, but definitely a jam-packed couple pages of Star Wars action. They're very, very thought-provoking. I don't really have strong opinions on it one way or the other, but what do you guys think?
I like this one. I think this is my favorite of the Devil Worlds. That's not a high bar. I don't like any of these like that much, but like this one's neat. I think this one's fun.
For me, it's this one, Telotny Throws a Shape, and the Pandora Effect.
I think
Those
in
are my
terms
three
of
favorites.
In terms of like things I actually think are good comics, this is the closest one. I think Telotny Throws a Shape is too like strung out. Whereas this is like there are events to this. I can kind of understand what's happening.
Yeah, I like the chess pieces.
Yeah.
Oh, yeah.
This one always stuck out to me for some reason when I read it the first time. And as we were talking about it just now, I realized that the Force entity is kind of like the Star Wars equivalent of Ghost Rider, where he kind of like makes you look at all your past sins and
with
makes you want to commit
penance
suicide.
stare.
Yeah, the penance stare, yes. But instead of, like burning you to hell, it's just, you just get so guilty that you kill yourself. So, but I said this before the live stream began, but I think it works either way because obviously this is written before the prequels. But, when you have this guy that's so powerful that can, manipulate your mind to the point where he can get you to kill yourself. Because I think, the more lore you get into Star Wars with like force manipulation, like you can make people do stuff that they don't want to do, but it's like their will in itself makes it a little bit harder to do that because it's like it's one thing in episode 4 when Obi-Wan goes like, you'll let us pass. Because like a simple thing that'd be like 2 seconds, they pass and they go back to being themselves. But making someone do something like that is a super big thing to do. And so Vader being able to be like, nope, not going to do that, just shows one, how powerful he is and how evil he is. No one can stop Darth Vader. you know.
Mhm.
But if you take in the prequels, then it's like he's already kind of suicidal. He already hates himself. Like there's nothing you can say to him or show him in a Force vision that he hasn't thought about for the past 20 years already. So that's why he can overcome it, because he already has those thoughts and he deals with it every day. And so I
Yes.
think that makes this comic a little bit stronger in hindsight than it would be otherwise. I think it would be rather forgettable without that context. But I think the fact, and also it's just an interesting force power that I wish was utilized more. The like either whether it be a force entity or like just a person that isn't a typical Jedi or Sith, but found out they had force potential and just like focused on one specific aspect and got really good at it, which is what I always thought this guy kind of was, you know. And I
Mhm.
wish there was more of that in Star
So
Wars,
maybe
where it's
like a
like
force savant,
power.
you could call him a
Force
force
savant,
savant, something like
yeah,
that.
yeah, something like that, yeah. Or they're
I
not
really,
affiliated with any particular religion or sect. They're just it's not even particularly a dark Jedi, just somebody that can use the Force in one specific aspect that they figured out on their own.
No.
Which I think is kind of neat.
Yeah, that kind of leads me into another aspect of this that I don't think we've seen before. This is like villain against even more criminal villain. So it's they're after Darth Vader here, who's the villain of Star Wars, but they're using dark side power, probing people's mind, getting them
Yeah.
to commit these acts. But what's their aim here? Because they're trying to kill Darth Vader. Are they trying to dethrone him? Are they trying to like take the Emperor's favor, replace him? The setting on this planet is also very interesting. It wasn't established yet, but it looks very similar to Bast Castle on Vijun later that we see in Dark Empire, sort of rainy, kind of dreary planet. And we also get to see stormtroopers without their helmets here. I don't think that's been shown very much here in Star Wars.
There are
comic
people
form.
underneath. So,
But yeah, we I don't think we see this planet here ever again. But very very similar to Vijun, because there's force sensitive people that live on the planet, or at least it has a history of force sensitive that live here. We in Yoda Dark Rendezvous, I think, was from Vijun, and his clan or his family had some like ancient ties to some sect of force user. I don't necessarily think it was Jedi, but that's an interesting connection that I saw here that I didn't notice when I first read it.
yeah, overall, I think it's good. It's not fantastic or anything, but I think of all the Dev World stuff, it was the most intriguing, engaging, and like Scott said earlier, thought provoking. So
I think of the ones of the Alan Moore ones, this is the best. I don't particularly rate the ones that he didn't do, so I guess by default it's the best one for me. It's neat. It's neat. It's one of the. I think it is. Is it the first villain comic that we've gotten?
where it focuses solely on a villain?
Where it's just on the villain.
Probably. I can't. I don't think I can recall, unless we count Vance as a villain. But I always saw more as like an anti-hero.
I would say anti-hero.
So
Anti-hero.
yeah,
So
You
this
have-
he's
is
definitely antagonistic. But
yeah, you always had new villains that were featured when they were on the gambling planet with Black Hole.
but this is the
that was
first
like
time
a
we've had
new-
a villain protagonist.
Right. Yeah.
yeah,
actually, we have had a villain opposing another villain. We've had the House of Tag.
we did have Tag, but we didn't focus on Tag though
Yeah,
exclusively.
the thing that interests me here
But
is
yeah.
that this is specifically focusing on
Like,
Vader.
no good guy characters are in this at all.
Yeah.
We have no idea what they're up to right now.
Mhm.
So I think that's notable. What year is this? What is this? 82 or 1?
One moment here. This is April 1982.
1982. Okay. So
I really like how Vader's drawn in this story.
Yeah, it's. I also like that. I mean, the chess thing's kind of silly, but at the same time, it's like we've seen Vader be like, very commanding presence. But it is good to see that he is also a good strategist that you kind of have to be when you're playing,
Yes.
chess and everything. So,
I think he'd see the value in this.
yeah. And with the revelations that we have in 5 that Darth Vader is actually Anakin Skywalker, it helps episode 4 when Obi-Wan talks about the Clone Wars and stuff. So it helps establish that Vader is more than just brute force. He does have a brain that he can strategize and do stuff. So I think that's kind of neat. Having cosmic space chess is a weird way to go about it, but I see the logic there somewhat. So
it's a means to an end.
It's not hologram either. There's real flames, real fire. If you go on the board and start moving around, you can just die. So that's very interesting. I will say, Vader's Stormtrooper guard is supposed to be the 501st. This guy is a little bit old to be in the 501st. I think a little sickly looking. I don't know if he's a former Clone Wars veteran or what, but I don't know. Not exactly the age that I would imagine. It's got gray hair.
Let's take a look at some other pages here.
So what I like about this is that it sort of asks the question of, okay, we don't know that much about stormtroopers, at least in the context of just the 2 films that we have at this point.
True.
But based on the things that we know that they've done, like
killed Uncle Owen and
Beru. Yes. Yeah. Isn't it probable that they've probably done some much worse stuff as well?
Yeah. I think it's pretty obvious they harass everybody in Mos Eisley on Tatooine, that they're not very good people and have committed crimes all across the galaxy, everywhere they go.
Their name might also be a dead giveaway, as it's historically relevant to other things. So.
Yes.
It also doesn't tell you absolutely that these people, the guy's mind probing them, but he could be implanting them with thoughts that aren't necessarily there. So it could be they didn't actually commit these crimes, and they just are made to think that they did. Possibility too.
Well, long spidery fingers reach into his mind, overturning stones, revealing the dark memories that squirm beneath.
Yeah.
Were they implanted there? Did they always exist there? I don't know.
The soldier had buried his guilt with his victims, but now they rise again with pleading eyes and bloodied faces. His conscience eats him alive. Clat the Shamer smiles.
I think it's safe to say the intention was that it was their actual memories.
Yeah, they all look the same too. It's like the same girl and multiple faces.
Yeah. So what I do find interesting
this predates the Penance Stare by about a decade.
Does it actually?
Yes. Maybe a little bit more.
Stole from this. I'm just kidding.
Oh my God! Howard Mackey came in and was like, "That's mine."
I like Star Wars. I saw this one comic by Alan Moore. It's pretty crazy. What if we did a whole thing revolving around that?
American Mackey, American editor. Yeah. Well.
Oh, I like the sort of parallel of this panel over here and this panel over here with the analogy of lost pieces.
Right. That the stormtroopers are meant to be pawns. That's the analogy.
That is.
And the fact that some of their sins were great and some were trivial, but when Clat the Shamer touched their minds, their guilt proved to be the same, proved to be unbearable.
That's a little bit suggesting that these crimes were amplified in some way, at least by his whatever he does to their minds.
At least in terms of how they feel about it. Some were actually major things. So maybe they stole some things. Some of them,
So you would think that with everything that Vader's done, that he would have plenty to work with, more than any of the people that he's killed so far. But But sort of going by the prequels, therein lies the paradox, right? Because what he's trying to use to kill Vader is the thing that keeps Vader going.
Yeah, his hatred for himself.
Yeah, so after he dispatches with the stormtroopers, he goes after Vader. In the room that they're playing chess, there's this chessboard throughout the room, and he just steps on it, and Vader recognizes the threat and moves a piece to right where he's standing, tells him, I've sensed this ahead of time, I prepared for it, and he chats with him a little bit. He says, do what you must, and then he at this time he pushes a button to move the chess piece. Before they were just announcing where the chess pieces were going, and they did it, but it's kind of weird that he has a button here at this point.
Oh no, they hold on. There.
Oh, okay. I guess he was just announcing it and pressing the button.
Yes.
Vader's extra sometimes. I really don't like the guy's mustache, though. That's not totally what from.
That's not correct.
Yeah, looks like a rat.
So I don't think there's a whole lot left to say about this story.
It's the sort of moustache I can see I can see a character in, say, Ewoks or droids having.
Yeah.
A little bit, yeah.
1980s. Yeah.
We are in the 80s.
After he kills Clat the Shamer, he kills Lady Dull in the same fashion. They get burned to death.
Yes.
Vader walks away unscathed.
As always. Or at least as usual. First time he did not walk away unscathed. With the whole burning at the volcano.
Yeah.
Who's counting? Don't count.
He had the high ground, but he forgot. So did Maul.
Yeah.
So.
Yeah. So this one's not bad. This one's okay. I don't mind this one. I don't think this is Shakespeare or whatever, but
no, it does make the most of 6 pages it was given to work with. So
it's probably the best Alan Moore Star Wars story. And if you like Alan Moore, which I feel like most of the people watching this who like comics probably do, that's neat. That's something worth noting. All right.
The next one is entitled Rust Never Sleeps. It's also written by Alan Moore. Penciler this time is Alan Davis, letterer Jenny O'Connor, colorist Matt Webb. This came out in May the following month with the following Empire Strikes Back Monthly 156. And this one, it features R2 and 3PO. It's very similar to like a Droids episode. They're taken by a junk hauler, not really given a lot of explanation, but they're dumped on this dump trash planet. And it's full of droids. It makes reference to this is the planet where all droids die. And they encounter a droid that's still alive, I guess. He thinks he's in touch religiously with the planet. He's called Five Lines. And he has many disciples that sort of worship the planet. The planet's called Ronyards, and they believe that the planet is sacred or is a god of sorts. And 3PO, in his typical fashion, warns like the Empire's coming to kill him. Like the Empire's up to no good, and it's going to strip the planet and use the metals for recycling for its own purposes. And Five Lines doesn't believe him. A Star Destroyer arrives, and then there's some sort of supernatural things that happen. The screws come loose on some of the junk and sort of pierce the stormtroopers' armor when they shoot Five Lines. Five Lines actually gets shot by the stormtroopers. So, R.I.P. to him. But there's some like unfortunate events that happen, like the Star Destroyer crashes, and there's hints at the very end that maybe the planet is sacred. It is some sort of deity that has some supernatural power that kept the Empire at bay and protected at least R2 and 3PO there.
I think it's less that Five Lines didn't believe 3PO and more that he just wasn't worried. Because,
right.
well,
Yeah.
What I do like about this is, well, one, when I read it the first time and on a reread, it immediately made me think of the planet from Force Unleashed. That
yes.
is like the
Yeah.
second
Raxus Prime.
Right.
something
Yes.
like that. Yeah, it's like a
That-
trash planet.
That's
you go
the more
on.
modern junkyard planet that's featured, I think, in a couple video games that
Yeah.
later EU references consider the trash planet.
Hmm.
Yes,
But
which
it's another like example one. But also,
it's not
if it is
surprising
a
that there are
planet,
several planets like this, right?
yeah, I'm sure, a big
Sure.
galaxy.
Yeah.
But if it is living, then we have another example of what we'd see later on in New Jedi Order. We see that a few times. It happens in Galaxy of Fear. This one's a bit more vague. And then, of course, New Jedi Order, we have these living planets. So I'm okay either way with that. They could just be crazy, or they could be right that it's sentient, but not that it's a god. But that could explain why it protected C-3PO and R2-D2. So, or was able to.
So I do have a few things to say about this story. First, going back to Raxus Prime for a moment, there's in The Force Unleashed, there's a moment when you arrive when Proxy says, I can hear thousands of droids all calling out to each other. This is where all droids go to die.
Yeah, a direct reference to this. I don't know if it was intentional or not, but yeah, I do remember that.
Yes. And Raxus Prime, it's not exactly the same as this, because this is more
just droids.
If we assume that this is some manifestation of the Force, then it's sort of playing with the idea of, well, you've got these pillars here of sort of melted together droid metal, and it's sort of
like bodies.
It's sort of, that's sort of what's going on with this whole planet. You've got this entity or something that has formed across the whole planet that is sort of, I think, composed of all these, whatever awareness a
droid would have,
could be said to have.
Yeah,
it is formed of all of these discarded droids, and it's interesting because it's sort of asking the question of, is
an amalgamation of all the droids?
It's sort of asking the question of, is a droid alive? And if so, what does that mean? Especially when they are broken and no longer useful and they're discarded in places like this.
Right. It says at the very beginning in the intro that like humans are cared for when they're no longer able to work and they're older, but droids are just discarded, like when they can't be repaired or can't be salvaged, they're just recycled on this planet.
They don't really sleep, so they just have to be conscious for all of it.
Russ never sleeps.
Let's see some other pages here while we're talking about this.
I do like the Alan Moore's voice for 3PO. It feels,
very typical
to the character.
I almost feel like this could be like a Droids episode, no problem. Like they could adapt this. I almost feel it's like, you know, the Great Heap interaction a little bit. Obviously, the Great Heap's kind of a villain character, but here you have 5 lines. It's kind of this giant droid.
I do like the design for the droid as well, the new droid.
I'm partial to Alan Davis like always. So the art I just enjoy in general. I will say, I've kind of come to the conclusion that I do not like the droids. I mean, I love C-3PO and R2-D2 and all those characters, but like when it's a droids focused thing, I just start falling asleep. I just don't care about the droids or their adventures. Every time I'm subjected to a droid's adventure, I want to go to bed.
You don't care to see them in trouble again?
No, they can. I like the theme song. The theme song is very cool. But if they got trash
I'll
compacted,
take droids over Ewoks any day. I'm sorry.
Nah. I love the Ewoks. The droids, I can't do. And this is like the best chance for me to care about it because it's Alan Davis, it's Alan Moore, but he's able to come up with some interesting here. There's no women to be shot, so that's good. That's a good sign for Alan Moore. But even then, I'm like, I don't care about the droids. I like them on like over there, like as part of the cast, like in the background, making the funny voices and the jokes and all that stuff. That's funny. I like that. As protagonists, I do not care at all about droids. I don't know how I'm going to get through the cartoon, to be honest with you. Mostly by suffering.
I don't know if I agree with you, but I also don't disagree with you. I think that's partly to do with the fact that Star Wars never bothered to really do anything with C-3PO and R2-D2 other than be comic relief, except for a handful of times where in the novels they would try, which is, again, another reason I appreciate Supernatural Encounters for actually dealing with the droid problem. Because I was actually talking to my friend about just like robots in general the other day randomly, and because we're both religious, and so I was like, is there ever a point, like what would have to be demonstratively proven for you to be like out in the streets in the future, like advocating for droid rights? Or do you think there's any place where you would do that? And we both were kind of like, well, not really, because that would require them to have a soul for me to be that caring about it. And it'd be really hard for you to prove that they're not just simulating what they've seen in other humans and on media and stuff to be like true, authentic thought. I think, therefore I am. That's not just regurgitated, even if it seems really sophisticated, which right now we don't have sophisticated AI. But I think Star Wars is relatively proven that these things actually have a soul. They think, they get scared, they have original thoughts.
They beg not to be killed, like in Return of the
They beg
Jedi.
not to be killed, and yet throughout the entirety of the series, from beginning to end, even if you go all the way to Legacy Comics, there's been no improvement on that. They just are continually treated as absolute garbage, and it's never addressed. So it's like,
I fully admit, like this is just down to like personal preference. I'm sure somebody is out there being like, man, I can't stand Han Solo. I hate Han Solo, or whatever. You know what I mean? It's like,
you either like the character or you don't.
Yeah, and I do like these characters. It's just I don't like the stories where they're protagonists. I just it doesn't work.
It doesn't have enough impactful-ness. Yeah, I kind of agree with you.
I agree too. I think
this is acceptable in that it's 5 pages. Like that's nothing. Like this is okay. I think this is one of my favorite droid stories just because it doesn't waste any time. So I'll take that.
Right. Getting back to Alex's point, obviously this is Star Wars. It's made up. It's fantasy. There's obviously a moral angle or a lesson that this story is trying to infer on the reader, that it's kind of cruel to use droids just for your own purposes and discard them. And the narrator in this story in particular doesn't feel like he's neutral. He definitely like has a sway towards droids, and there's a lot of things sort of inferred here. I'll just read one short clip here. It says, and if they had a god, meaning if the droids had a god, then surely it would be as meek and subservient as the droids themselves. It would not be a god of wrath. It would not be a god of vengeance. And it's as it's saying this, like the nails are coming out of the pieces and piercing.
Yeah, it's very on the nose.
So I mean, it's obviously being funny there, but it seems like the narrator's not sure what's going on, and I don't know how I feel about that in a Star Wars story. I feel like it should be neutral. The narrator should just sort of say what's happening and not put a twist on what's going on, or try to twist it in a funny manner.
Yeah, I don't mind like an author dealing with it if they're going to actually deal with it, but with the pages they have, there's not enough time to really delve into that, I think. But it is interesting because most of the universe, like they even have like, oh, it's becoming too self-aware, mind wipe it, put it back to default factory setting, implying like, oh yeah, it actually is becoming a person, so let's lobotomize it so it goes back to its basic functions. You know, like that's kind of crazy to me. And it's never addressed in Star Wars, really. Other universes don't have that. They're just robots and they stay robots. But this one,
it is Transformers, where they're just people. They're just made out of metal.
Well, they're just like aliens that look like robots. They're not even really robots, right?
Well, no, they are literally made out of pieces and stuff. But like, they're on a functional level, they're just people.
I think it's a fascinating thing to dive into in Star Wars if you wanted to, but there's not enough time in this comic to really address it. So it's just kind of fluff to me in this story.
To address Scott's point just briefly, the narration thing, that is definitely like a trope of British comic writers. I know Simon Furman has like text in conflict with the with the art for like comedic effect. He does that all the time. Alan Grant does that. A lot of the British comic writers do that. Alan Moore is one of the more notable ones because he all of the tropes that are associated with British writers, he cranks up to 11. But
right,
it sounds like something you'd probably. It sounds like something you'd probably find in, say, 2000 AD of this era. If you were to read some of that, I wouldn't know. I haven't, but
it's not so much the conflict between what's going on in the comic versus the narration. That's fine. Like you can use that to achieve humor or whatever you're trying to go there. But all the way till the end of the comic, and I know we only have a couple pages here, but it's like it's suggesting that it's not really clear what happened to the Star Destroyer. It says we have a name for such flukes. We call them acts of God, but the Empire had dispensed with such foolish and arcane notions long ago, and perhaps was their loss. So it's not clear what exactly happened. It's leaving it up to the reader, which I guess is
destroyed.
Yeah, it was destroyed, but how it was destroyed? Was it destroyed by a fluke? How did these nails come out of the parts?
No, it was destroyed by the planet. Well,
yeah, that's the thing. Is it a planet like in New Jedi Order?
It doesn't. It strongly suggests that, but it doesn't outright say that.
Yeah, it leaves it a bit ambiguous for you to infer what you want.
And I feel like
was it the planet?
I feel like a narrator should say, okay, this event happened this many years before or after Return of the Jedi. It should be fairly straightforward. It's like, I don't actually know what planet this event happened, and I don't know exactly what happened to the Star Destroyer. Like, I don't like that sort of narration.
I think as you pick up Devils, so you're accepting. Sorry, go ahead.
To pick this apart a little bit, if it was presented from the start as a story being told, like a literal narrator, like at the beginning it says, so many years ago.
Okay, that would be different. That would be different. But I pictured this as I was reading it, not a recollection of a previous event, but actually this is actually happening at
like an omniscient Marvel narrator normally is.
Right. Okay. Yeah. That's what I expected. Maybe I was wrong.
I was just trying to figure out. I was just trying to figure out the nuances here.
Its use of the term "acts of God" that's very deliberate because the Star Destroyer was destroyed by their god.
Yes.
Sure. Yeah. I think. I mean, I don't know if any of the Dev World stories have been particularly typical Star Wars narrator affair when it comes to the events. So it's been kind of weird throughout, like not really knowing the time and place that it's happening in, never really explaining where it's at. Like when you talk about Talotny throws a shape, we had no idea where Leia was, why she was there. We knew she was running away from stormtroopers. That's about it. I suppose the one that makes the most sense is the first one we read where they go through the triangle, but even that is still like not really explained. So I think when you pick up Devil Worlds by Alan Moore, I think even initially when it came out, you know, this was meant to be strange, otherworldly, bizarre tales to read. So even the first time I read this, just from the vague things I saw Matt talk about on his expanded universe, because he's very vague on his initial reviews of those stuff. Like I remember half the stuff I'd read, I was like, oh, he didn't spoil a thing, and half the time he talked about stuff that wasn't even like actually a part of the story is another story that mixed up. Anyway, but I went into Devil Worlds with like the cover that it has and the title of it and what I vaguely know of Alan Moore. I was like, I'm in for something not typical of Star Wars. So for me, when the kind of like poetic way that the boxes are in this story, not explicitly telling me what's going on in a normal sense, I just kind of go, I guess that's par for the course of what I've been reading so far. I'm not too bothered by that fact. And I'm okay not really knowing how it ended in a concrete scientific way. Like the planet did this to the ship that made it go kablooey. I'm okay not knowing that. I think it's okay to have some mystery left in Star Wars, so it doesn't bug me too much that I don't fully understand.
I will take a little bit of issue with that because these were not Devil Worlds; these were Empire Strikes Back.
Oh, sorry,
or weekly. Well, but I think that makes a difference. Is this was not presented as like, oh, this is a weird thing. It was presented as Empire Strikes Back weekly. So this is just part of.
No, that's fair. And I redact that part, but I would still say it's Alan Moore, and everything I've seen of him has been strange.
For the American audience, I 100% agree. Like this is like weird shit. I agree with that. But for like let's Robert, let's take you back in time, 40 some years.
Okay.
I know you didn't exist, but it's close enough. And you pick up Empire Strikes Back weekly number 150 some
6, but yes, just real quick, it was reprinted in Devil Worlds #2. So
Devil Worlds,
I don't know if it was always meant to be Devil Worlds, but it was included probably because it's an Alan Moore story.
Yeah. But those original like Marvel Empire Strikes Back weeklies, you go to whatever store you'd go to get your comics in 1982, and you pick it up and you read this.
No,
it's weird.
Okay. I would understand why you'd be upset about that. That'd be fair. You're like, why does this not make sense? That's completely fair.
It's fine that they leave plots unresolved and they leave some loose ends. I don't have any problem with that. But just the unreliability of the narrator. Another thing about this story, and maybe I'm being too judgmental, is I'm not sure it was meant to connect to a continuing Star Wars story. It was just kind of its own thing. It wasn't meant to be a part of a Star Wars expanded universe that it would pick up on stuff later on. So in that sense, like when you have a continuing story where one builds off the next, you can't have an unreliable narrator because it's like, does this story even count entirely? You get to kind of just start second guessing yourself. So kind of the new canon sometimes, but I think it could have been resolved a little bit more definitively at the end, like just maybe one more panel just clarifying what exactly happened, because there's this constant like, droids have no god, have they? Oh yes, hint hint, they kind of do, but they don't go outright and say that.
For our purposes, in being
says, like, Star Wars a bit looser back then in terms of continuity. We haven't any really concrete things till a decade later. So
for sure, for our purposes, which we are not Alan Moore fans or Empire Strikes Back weekly fans or even Marvel fans, really, if we're being honest. At least I'm not. Our purposes are analyzing this as EU, Marvel Star Wars. I mean, our purpose in analyzing these 5 pages is this is part of the expanded universe. Does it work as an expanded universe story? It's a little weird. They're all weird. They're all weird, and I don't like most of them.
It's similar to a droid story that isn't doesn't have any resolution, and I think there's a lot of them. It's not just this one. You have Great Heap, and some of the stuff appears later, and I think the Vehicles and Vessels, like one of the essential guides, or maybe it was the droids one he was in and had some extra information. But it's like this one, the droid deity on this junkyard planet of Ronyards. I don't think there's much else about this. It just kind of just hangs out there as an unresolved plot point that's never really going to be picked up.
I think all of Alan Moore's stuff could make for some really interesting, different, unique Star Wars ideas, but they're in a comic that's not very long, and so there's not enough time to flesh this stuff out. This all could be really interesting to explore in the Star Wars setting, but it's not long enough to justify the weirdness.
It's like if you took a Twilight Zone episode and took it from like an hour or 30 minutes down to 2 minutes, and you're like, here's the story. Dead person. Oh, you're just like, it's not. You need a little bit more time to sit with. I think this story especially would have benefited from having a lot more time, letting it kind of, even though that is literally the opposite of what I want. That would have let it. Yeah, we would have had. I think we would have had fewer issues. I don't even think, as I said, I don't think this one's bad. It's just really bizarre, and I don't like droid focused comics. So, how about you guys? What's the rating on this one? How do we feel?
It's a good story if it was on its own. I'm sort of like an Infinities type story. I don't like it as part of the expanded universe. It's not followed up on. It's not exactly clear what happened, and it's not in the same spirit as some of the other later, what we consider to be an EU story. So I guess it depends how you want to judge it. As an EU story, I don't think it's very good. As its own, just kind of one-off, it's pretty good, I'd say.
That's fair.
I would say it's entertaining enough. I think it would also change if the EU was still around, because like I said, I think there's a lot of potential here to flesh this out into something kind of like how, Talotny throws a shape. Yes, Marcel, but me and Al talked about it last time. How it's not very good, right? If you're just reading that on its own accord, but with all the baggage that comes with it now, due to Joe Bongiorno's, unofficial book, there's a lot of interesting stuff that's explored using that. That's really cool and interesting. And if the EU is still going, I could see this being fleshed out into something actually worth my time. So there's a lot of potential there that would be cool, but the EU's ended, so there's no possibility unless Lucasfilm changes, which it's been a long time now. They probably aren't.
But they had this
also such an obscure thing to, even if they did that, this would be fleshed out.
Would be bottom of the list for almost
the bottom of the list. So but in a world where the EU was still going and there was that random writer like Aba G. Pina is like, oh, let's flesh out this Alan Moore story. I could see a really good story coming out of this. But so I guess A for potential and C for execution.
Fair enough.
I'll leave it.
Scott, you're about to say something?
Well, I was just going to say they only had 30 years to decide to do something with this. And there were so many other droid stories. I mean, even if you just consider when it was reprinted in the 90s, you still had 20 years between then and when the EU ended. And you had all these like Droid Revolution stories.
Yeah, but Skywalker didn't come out to like 15?
Something like that.
And that was about a story from the 70s. So,
Yeah, but I've never really seen a droid that worships a god in any other story. It's something that's like hardly touched on, or any concept of that idea appears anywhere else. So
I think if Dark Horse was going to do something, they should have reached out to Alan Moore in the 90s when they released these and went like, do you want to do like a Star Wars tale? Something like that. But
there were Star Wars droids tales, but kind of similar to not treat droids badly, kind of the same message there. And I don't know,
but like an expanded version. I don't even know if anybody would want that. I don't know. They're too short to be like, to get like,
yeah, and that's why I don't want to be too harsh in my judgment. I'm just saying as a concept,
Of course.
I don't think it's consistent with what came later.
Well,
I agree. I don't think it would particularly
point.
ask for more. I'm just saying there's potential. I mean, a lot of things that exist we didn't ask for. We didn't ask for Star Wars. It came out. We're like, oh, that's really cool, and then it became a franchise. But I think there's potential here to have something really interesting in the Star Wars setting. There's just not enough to make that exist here.
What I was trying to say is like this is not like enough to get upset over, but like at the same time, you have like this would have been a cool idea if someone did something with it. So you're like caught in between. You're caught in between a rock and a hard place. One hand, it's 5 pages. Who cares? On the other hand, it could have been so much more. So I think there's a little bit of like I want to see some from this, or if you're like droids, which is not me. That's my thought process. Robert, up or down on this?
I like this story, but not as much as the other 3 Alan Moore stories that we've covered.
Yeah, I think we're pretty much relatively on the same page on that.
Yeah.
I think just to when I talk about potential and stuff, a lot of Star Wars is Jedi versus Sith. And then we had a little bit of a different thing with the Yusong Vong. But by and large, a lot of Star Wars stories, even the X-Wing books, while they may be focused on people that aren't Jedi, they all kind of feel the same. Which obviously, yes, it's a franchise. You want familiarity and stuff. But I think also, and as I was saying off air, when we're talking about like Marvel or superhero fatigue in movies, it's because they all feel the same. And I think when I watched this video, I don't remember the guy's name at the moment. He only has like 200 subs. It's his first video. And I don't know how I pulled it up on my refresh page, but it was great. But, he said, and I've had Al talk to me about, comics for a while and talking about how cool they are. But, he was saying like in the video, like if you think there's some sort of idea for like a comic book movie that you'd want to see that you haven't seen, it exists. It's in a comic somewhere. Like even if it's obscure and weird, if you have an idea for something you want, it exists. You just have to go find it. And I think that's also the beauty of Star Wars. It's so vast and huge that there are numerous different things you could do within the setting beyond the typical that can make it feel like a really fleshed out. Every weird boy out there that's got their weird little niche is something they like. You could find it in Star Wars. There's potential there for everything. And so like the whole droid stuff, I mean, science fiction has done this forever with Isaac Asimov and the 3 Laws of Robotics, and Dune with its ecology and, everything that it philosophizes in those books. So there's potential for Star Wars to delve in that effectively. We just never got that. And so when I see something like this, it's short. It's not very good on its own. It's kind of bizarre. It doesn't really explain itself. Kind of pointless in the grand scheme because it never comes up again. But I won't put that as a flaw in this story that it never comes up again. I take it as a flaw of other people that I know read this and just never did anything with it to flesh that out and make it more interesting. But I like Star Wars when it can be a bit out there and a bit weird, but also make it concrete, which when we're in this Wild West era, it's just a bunch of weird with not a lot of fleshing out and fitting. Later on, there'd be certain things that people would hang on to and make that actually be congruent with what happened later, like the Skywalkers thing by L.G. Peener. Like, oh, those weird gargoyle people with the wings. Let's make that a thing. Let's also make it so it's not a contradiction with the Obi-Wan saying that Darth Vader killed this other guy. Now we make it all fit and work.
You can definitely tell that, like, in terms of importance, like the number one thing people wanted from the Marvel series was Lumaya, because she literally got brought back.
Yeah,
and then the rest of the Marvel series is below that, and then at the in the bottom tier of hell is the Devil Worlds that nobody remembered and nobody wanted to do anything with until
except for Joe Bongiorno.
Yeah, he was the one person who was like, "I'll do it."
And I gotta commend him for it because
I'll take it. I've never, I'm not gonna turn it down.
But I like a lot of the ideas in all of these Devil Worlds issues and Alan Moore in general, but it just ultimately, they're just all kind of whatever on their own in a vacuum, I guess, in the grand scheme of things. But I appreciate the weirdness that Alan Moore presents and the ideas that he presents. I think he's a unique guy.
Oh, yeah.
And, even when it comes to DC with Swamp Thing, very, from the few issues I've read, which is not many, I'm no Swamp Thing connoisseur, but just a vastly different vibe from the rest of DC. It's a very specific thing when you read that. So, it's cool that you can have that exist in the same universe as Superman flying around, but like, I love people, like it's cool that it can exist in the same world. So I like that for Star Wars too, because I think there's some universes where it should say that specific thing and not stray, because it will ruin it. But Star Wars has always been very fluid with its genres. So I like diversifying and exploring different types of stories. Did Alan Moore land them? Different question. But.
Well, this does beat a continuing LA Times comic that doesn't seem to go anywhere. I'd rather have something short and entertaining that doesn't relate to anything else than something long and drawn out that doesn't really relate to anything else. I mean, barring one exception to Tales of the Jedi for the Night Beast that we're covering next. But that'll be a new episode.
Yeah.
Being a Hellboy reader, I do have something of an affection for, stories of this length.
It's nice. It's a nice little cap for a week, because these were released weekly. Oh, here's your little weird tale for the week. That's nice. I like that. But
that's about it. Until next time. Sorry.
The next stories we'll be covering LA Times comics, the Return of Ben Kenobi and the Night Beast. Next episode.
Night Beast, which will inadvertently connect to Tales of the Jedi by accident. Yeah.
But yeah.
Till then, live long and prosper, as another franchise would say. Bye-bye.
That's it.